On the morning of my husband's funeral, my daughter said, "You have 3 days to pack your things and leave this house." I'm Helena Thorne. I'm 75 years old. I looked at her, my only daughter, standing in my kitchen in her black Prada dress and Cartier watch, and I smiled. "That's interesting, Victoria," I said quietly. "Very interesting." Because what she didn't know was that 4 weeks earlier, I had purchased her house. All $400,000 of her mortgage debt. And she was about to find out exactly what kind of woman her mother really was. The funeral was on a Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. My husband, Richard Thorne, had died of a heart attack at 68, sudden and cruel, leaving me widowed after 43 years of marriage. Our home in Sacramento, a modest 3-bedroom ranch at 847 Maple Ridge Drive, was filled with people, neighbors, Richard's colleagues from the engineering firm, my church friends, and family, always family. I'd spent the morning in a fog of grief, accepting condolences, arranging flowers, making sure the catered lunch was set up properly in the dining room. I was wearing my navy blue suit, the one I'd worn to Richard's company dinners for 30 years. Pearl earrings, sensible black heels. I looked exactly like what everyone expected. A grieving widow, fragile and lost. My daughter Victoria arrived at 11, just as the service was ending. She swept in with her husband Derek Hayes, both of them dressed expensively, perfectly. Victoria was 43, beautiful in that cold, polished way that comes from money and maintenance. Her hair was professionally styled. Her makeup was flawless, even as she dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue. Derek was 42, tall, handsome, with that particular brand of confidence that comes from never having faced real consequences. He worked in luxury car sales, or had until his dealership went under 6 months ago. I knew this because my best friend Dorothy Mitchell had told me. Dorothy knew everything that happened in Sacramento real estate and business circles. They moved through the crowd like royalty, accepting sympathy, playing the devoted daughter and son-in-law. I watched them from across the room, and something cold settled in my chest. Because I'd seen Derek at our house 3 weeks ago, photographing Richard's vintage watch collection when he thought no one was home. I'd seen Victoria going through my desk drawers 2 months ago, looking for something. She'd jumped when I walked in, smiled brightly, and said she was just looking for a pen. But there were pens in the kitchen. There were pens everywhere. The lunch was winding down around 1 o'clock when Victoria found me in the kitchen. I was washing dishes. It kept my hands busy, kept my mind from the crushing reality that Richard was gone. "Mom?" Her voice was sharp, impatient. I turned, drying my hands on a dish towel. "Yes, sweetheart?" She glanced toward the doorway, making sure we were alone. "We need to talk about the house." "The house?" "This house." She gestured around my kitchen, the kitchen where I'd made 43 years of family dinners, where Richard and I had our morning coffee, where we'd planned our entire life together. "It's way too big for you now. You're 75, Mom. You can't maintain a 3-bedroom house alone." I said nothing, just waited. "Derek and I have been talking." She pulled out her phone, swiped to show me something. "We found this lovely assisted living facility, Golden Sunset Senior Community. It's very nice, Mom. They have activities, meal plans, nursing staff, on-site 24/7. I looked at the photo, a grim brick building on the edge of town. I knew the place. My friend Rita Walsh's husband had died there last year, and Rita had told me it was like a prison. Fluorescent lights, linoleum floors, the smell of industrial cleaner trying to mask something worse. "I'm not interested in assisted living, Victoria." "Mom, you need to be realistic." Her voice took on that patient, condescending tone she used when explaining things to people she thought were stupid. "You can't live here alone. What if you fall? What if you have a health emergency? There's no one here to help you." "I have friends. I have neighbors." "Friends aren't family, Mom." She put her phone away. "Look, I know today is hard. We're all grieving. But we have to make practical decisions. This house is worth what? $580,000 in the current market? Maybe more. If we sell it now, you'll have plenty of money for Golden Sunset, and there'll be money left over for your care." There it was, The word that made everything clear. We. What do you mean we, Victoria? She blinked. What? You said we sell the house. This is my house. Why would you be involved in selling it? Something flickered across her face. Annoyance, maybe. Or calculation. I'm on the deed, Mom. Remember? 5 years ago when you had that heart scare, you added me as a co-owner. So if anything happened to you, there wouldn't be legal complications. My heart scare. I'd had a minor arrhythmia in 2019. Nothing serious. The doctor had said it was stress and prescribed medication. But Victoria had been so concerned, so loving. She'd insisted I get my affairs in order. She'd brought the papers herself. I'd signed them, trusting my daughter completely. I remember, I said quietly. So you understand. She smiled, warm and reassuring. I'm just trying to help you, Mom. Dad would have wanted you taken care of. Dad? Richard, the man who'd built his engineering firm from nothing, who'd saved and invested carefully, who'd told me just 3 months ago that he needed to talk to me about something important regarding Victoria. He'd never gotten the chance. I appreciate your concern, Victoria, but I'm not ready to make any decisions right now. Your father just died. I know, Mom. I know. She reached out, touched my arm. Her fingers were cold. But that's exactly why we need to act quickly. You're in shock. You're grieving. You're not thinking clearly. Let Derek and me handle the details. We've already talked to a real estate agent. She can come by on Friday to take photos and start the listing. Friday? Today was Tuesday. That's 3 days from now. Exactly, which gives you plenty of time to pack your essentials. We'll arrange movers for the furniture. Some of it we can sell. Some of it, well, Golden Sunset has furnished apartments, so you won't need much. She was talking faster now, as if speed would prevent me from objecting. I've already put down a deposit at Golden Sunset, $2,000. They're holding a lovely corner unit for you. You can move in as early as next week. I stared at my daughter. At the woman I'd raised alone after her father, her real father, my first husband, James, had died when she was 7. I'd worked 2 jobs. Secretary during the day, seamstress at night. I'd saved every penny for her piano lessons, her college education, her wedding. I'd remarried when she was 12. Richard had adopted her, loved her as his own, put her through graduate school, helped her buy her first car. And now she was standing in my kitchen on the day of his funeral, telling me I had 3 days to leave my home. Victoria, I said carefully, did you put down that deposit with your own money? She hesitated, just for a second. Well, no. I used the emergency credit card Dad gave me, the one linked to your joint account. But it's fine, Mom. It's for your care. That's what the account is for. The emergency credit card. The one Richard had given her 10 years ago, with strict instructions. Only for true emergencies. Medical issues, car breakdowns, real problems. Not for reserving assisted living facilities without my knowledge or consent. I see. I turned back to the sink, picked up another dish. Well, thank you for your concern, Victoria, but I'm not selling the house, and I'm not moving to Golden Sunset. Silence. I could feel the temperature in the room drop. Mom, her voice was different now, harder. You're not thinking straight. The grief, I'm thinking perfectly clearly. You can't stay here alone. You're 75 years old. You've mentioned my age 3 times now. I'm aware of how old I am. Then you should be aware that you can't maintain a property like this. The yard work alone? I have a gardener, Tommy Rodriguez. He comes every Thursday. The bills, the maintenance, the property taxes. I have an accountant, Sarah Bennett at Bennett Financial. She's been managing my taxes for 15 years. Victoria's face was flushing now. Mom, you're being stubborn and unrealistic. Dad just died. You're going to be alone in this big house with all these memories. Don't you think it would be easier to start fresh somewhere new? Somewhere with support? I set down the dish and turned to face her fully. What I think, Victoria, is that you and Derek need money, and you've decided that selling my house is the solution to your problems. Her mouth opened, closed. That's not. How much do you owe, Victoria? I don't know what you're talking about. How much debt are you carrying? How far behind are you on your mortgage? Her face went white, then red. Who told you? It doesn't matter who told me. What matters is that you're using your father's funeral as an opportunity to pressure me into giving up my home. I'm trying to help you. No. My voice was quiet but firm. You're trying to help yourself. There's a difference. For a moment, we just stared at each other. I saw my daughter clearly then, saw the calculation in her eyes, the frustration that I wasn't cooperating with her plan, the barely concealed contempt for the elderly woman she thought I was. Weak, confused, easy to manipulate. She had no idea who I really was. Fine. She grabbed her purse from the counter. If you want to be stubborn, that's your choice. But when you're struggling here alone, when something happens and there's no one to help you, don't come crying to me. She walked to the doorway, then turned back. Oh, and Mom, I'm still on that deed. So eventually you'll have to deal with me about this house, whether you like it or not. Then she was gone, heels clicking across my hardwood floors, the front door slamming hard enough to make the windows rattle. I stood in my kitchen, hands shaking slightly, and allowed myself one deep breath. Then I pulled out my phone and called Dorothy Mitchell. Dorothy, I said when she answered, I need to know everything you know about Victoria's financial situation, and I need to know it today. That evening, after everyone had left, after I'd cleaned up the remnants of the funeral lunch and thrown away 100 sympathy cards I'd never read, I sat in Richard's study. It was a small room, lined with bookshelves, dominated by his massive oak desk. This was where he'd worked on weekends, where he'd managed our finances, where he'd built the comfortable life we'd shared. I'd barely been in here since he died. It hurt too much. But now I had a reason. I started with his filing cabinet. Richard was meticulous, organized. Every document was labeled, every receipt filed. I found our mortgage papers. The house had been paid off for 10 years. I found our investment statements. Richard had been a careful investor. Stocks, bonds, a modest portfolio. Nothing extraordinary. Nothing that would explain why Victoria was so desperate to sell this house. Then I found a folder labeled Victoria Personal. Inside were bank statements. Not mine, Victoria's. I stared at them, confused. Why did Richard have Victoria's bank statements? Then I started reading, and everything became clear. Joint checking account. Victoria Hayes and Derek Hayes. Balance as of October 15th, 2024. Negative $3,287. Overdraft fees. $840 in the last 6 months. Credit card statement. Chase Visa. Balance. $43,287. Minimum payment past due. $1,200. Credit card statement. American Express. Balance $38,942. Account 30 days past due. Mortgage statement. First Bank Home Loans. Amount due $4,287. Payment 60 days past due. Total loan balance $420,000. I sat back in Richard's chair. The papers spread across his desk. $420,000 in mortgage debt. $82,000 in credit card debt. $500,000 total, give or take. And a house, Victoria and Derek's house in Roseville, worth maybe $650,000 in the current market. They were drowning, barely keeping their heads above water, and they'd decided that my house, my home, was their life raft. I pulled out my laptop. Yes, I had one. I'd been using computers since the 1980s when I'd worked as an accountant before Richard and I married, and started searching. Golden Sunset Senior Community. I found their website. Monthly fees starting at $4,500 for a basic studio apartment. Additional fees for meals, activities, medical care. If I sold my house for $580,000, paid off any remaining expenses, and moved into Golden Sunset, I might have $400,000 left. At $4,500 a month, that was 7 years of care. Maybe 8 if I was frugal. And what would happen to the remainder when I was gone? It would go to Victoria, my heir, the daughter whose name was on my deed, the daughter who was already spending money she didn't have. I closed my laptop and looked around Richard's study, at his books, his diplomas on the wall, the photo of us on our wedding day 43 years ago. "What were you trying to tell me?" I whispered to his memory. "What did you find out about her?" The house was silent, but in that silence I made a decision. I would not be a victim. I would not be manipulated, coerced, or bullied out of my home by my own daughter. If Victoria wanted to play games with my life, she was about to learn that I knew how to play too. And I played to win. Dorothy arrived at 8 in the morning with coffee and information. Dorothy Mitchell was 72, a retired real estate agent who'd worked in Sacramento for 40 years before retiring. She was sharp, connected, and fiercely loyal to her friends. We'd known each other since the 1990s, when she'd helped Richard and me buy this house. We sat at my kitchen table and she spread out papers like a general planning a battle. "Your instincts were right," she said. "Victoria and Derek are in serious trouble." She showed me property records. Victoria and Derek had bought their house in Roseville 5 years ago for $595,000. They'd put down 20%, about $120,000, and financed the rest. "Where did they get the down payment?" I asked. Dorothy raised an eyebrow. "You tell me. Did you give them money in 2019? I thought back. Richard and I gave them $50,000 as a wedding gift in 2018. They said it was for their honeymoon and to furnish the house. Did they go on a honeymoon? I frowned. They said they were going to Italy, 2 weeks in Tuscany. They went to Cabo San Lucas for 4 days, Dorothy said flatly. I saw the photos on Victoria's Instagram. She tagged the location. $50,000 for a honeymoon they didn't take. What else? I asked. Derek's car dealership went under in April, Hayes Luxury Motors. He'd taken out business loans, about $180,000, and when the market shifted, he couldn't make payments. The dealership declared bankruptcy. Derek lost everything. She slid another document across the table. They refinanced their house in June, pulled out $100,000 in equity, probably to pay off some of Derek's business debts. Their mortgage went from $320,000 to $420,000. They're underwater, I said quietly. Worse than that. They're drowning. And Helena, she looked at me seriously. My nephew works at First Bank, the bank that holds their mortgage. He's not supposed to tell me this, but Victoria and Derek received a foreclosure notice 3 weeks ago. They have 90 days to bring the account current or the bank will take the house. 3 weeks ago, right around the time Derek was photographing Richard's belongings, right before Richard died. What's the timeline? I asked. They need to pay roughly $17,000 to bring the mortgage current. That's 4 months of missed payments plus penalties. If they can't, the bank starts foreclosure proceedings in early January. By March, they'll lose the house. I did the math. November 12th today. 90 days would be early February for the deadline. And if they sold my house? Dorothy nodded grimly. If they convinced you to sell, they'd get half the proceeds as a co-owner on the deed. That's about $290,000. More than enough to save their house and pay off their credit cards. They'd be free and clear. And I'd be in Golden Sunset, spending down my money until there was nothing left. Exactly. I stood up, walked to the window. Outside, my roses were blooming despite the November chill. I'd planted them 30 years ago when we'd first moved in. Red roses, Richard's favorite. Dorothy, I said quietly, I need your help. Anything. I need to buy Victoria's mortgage. She blinked. What? You said the bank is preparing foreclosure. That means they want to offload the loan. I want to buy it. Helena, that's $420,000. I have it. She stared at me. You have $400,000 in liquid assets? I turned to face her. Richard was a very good investor, Dorothy, and I was a very good accountant before I married him. We lived modestly, we saved aggressively, and when Richard's company went public in 2008, he had stock options. Her eyes widened. How much are you worth, Helena? I smiled. Enough. Can you help me or not? Dorothy started laughing. Not polite laughter, real, genuine, delighted laughter. Oh, this is going to be good. Yes, I can help you. My nephew, James Mitchell, can facilitate the purchase through a trust. The bank will be thrilled to get the loan off their books. We can have this done in 2 weeks. Can we do it faster? How fast? 1 week. I want to own Victoria's mortgage before that realtor shows up here on Friday. Dorothy's grin was absolutely feral. Helena Thorne, I think I'm going to enjoy this. Let me make some calls. By Friday morning, exactly 3 days after Victoria's ultimatum, I owned my daughter's house. Or rather, I owned the debt. $420,000 of it, purchased for $380,000 through a trust called Thorne Family Holdings, LLC. The bank had been so eager to unload a failing loan that they'd accepted the offer within 48 hours. The trust was structured so that Victoria and Derek would have no idea who owned their mortgage. The servicing company would continue sending them notices, but the actual ownership had transferred to me. I was sitting at my kitchen table, drinking coffee, when the doorbell rang at exactly 10 o'clock. I opened the door to find a woman in a business suit holding a camera and a clipboard. Behind her, Victoria's car was pulling into my driveway. Mrs. Thorne? The woman smiled brightly. I'm Sharon Klein from Premier Real Estate. Victoria said you were expecting me to photograph the house for listing? No, I said calmly. I wasn't expecting you, and this house is not for sale. Sharon's smile faltered. Oh, Victoria said... Victoria was out of her car now, striding up my walkway. Mom, what are you doing? I told you Sharon was coming today. You told me. I didn't agree. Mom, we discussed this. No, Victoria, you discussed it. I said no. This is my house. I am not selling. And Ms. Klein? I'm going to have to ask you to leave. This was a misunderstanding. Sharon looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I don't involve myself in family disputes. Mrs. Thorne, if you're not consenting to the sale, I can't proceed. She was backing toward her car. Victoria, I'm very sorry. Please call me when your mother is ready. She practically ran to her car. Victoria's face was scarlet. What is wrong with you? I've been trying to help you, and you're treating me like someone trying to steal my house? I said quietly. Because that's what you're doing, Victoria. I'm on the deed. Being on the deed doesn't give you the right to sell without my consent. I spoke with my attorney. Would you like his number? She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Your attorney? Since when do you have an attorney? Since Tuesday. Robert Steinberg at Steinberg & Associates. Very reputable firm. He's reviewed all my documents. He's assured me that you cannot sell this house, cannot evict me, and cannot force me to leave my own home. You're being ridiculous. No, Victoria, I'm being smart. Something you apparently think I'm too old and stupid to be. Her mouth opened and closed. Then, without another word, she turned and marched back to her car. She sat there for a full minute, gripping the steering wheel. I could see her screaming, though I couldn't hear the words. Then she drove away, tires squealing on the pavement. I closed the door, walked back to my kitchen, and called Dorothy. It's done, I said. She just tried to bring the realtor. I sent them both away. Good. Helena, the mortgage purchase is complete. You officially own Victoria's debt as of 9 this morning. Congratulations. You just became your daughter's landlord. I smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Now comes the interesting part, I said. Now we wait for her to make the next move. I didn't have to wait long. The weekend passed in tense silence. Victoria didn't call, didn't text. On Sunday morning, I went to church with Dorothy, Rita Walsh, and Joan Harper, 3 women who'd become my closest friends over the past decade. We sat in our usual pew, and I felt their protective presence around me like armor. After the service, we went to Rita's house for coffee. You need to tell us what's really going on, Rita said, pouring coffee into 4 mismatched mugs. She was 68, a retired nurse with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Victoria looked like she wanted to murder someone at the funeral. I told them everything. The ultimatum, the bank statements I'd found, the mortgage I'd purchased. Joan Harper, 70, a former family court mediator, let out a low whistle. Helena Thorne, you magnificent woman. You bought her mortgage? Through a trust. She doesn't know it's me. Yet, Dorothy added with a grin. But she's going to find out. The question is when and how. I need more information first, I said. I need to understand the full scope of what I'm dealing with, because I don't think the financial problems are all of it. Rita nodded slowly. You think there's more? I know there's more. Richard kept Victoria's bank statements in his personal files. He was investigating her. He knew something was wrong. He died before he could tell me what he'd found. The four of us sat in Rita's sunny kitchen, and I felt something shift. These weren't just my friends. They were my allies, my army. What do you need? Joan asked. Information, background. I need to know if Victoria has a pattern. Dorothy pulled out her phone. I have a friend who's a private investigator, completely discreet, former FBI. She owes me a favor. Do it, I said. I was in my garden at 7 in the morning when a silver BMW pulled into my driveway. Derek. He got out slowly, carrying a white paper bag and 2 coffee cups. He looked tired, older than his 42 years. There were shadows under his eyes, and his expensive suit looked rumpled. I stayed where I was, kneeling among my roses with my gardening gloves on. Helena, he called. Can we talk? I brought coffee. And those almond croissants you like from La Bonne Boulangerie. The fact that he knew I liked almond croissants should have been endearing. Instead, it felt calculated. When had Derek ever noticed what I liked? I'm busy, Derek. Please, just 10 minutes. He walked closer, set the coffee and bag on my patio table. I know Victoria came on too strong last week. The funeral, the timing, it was all wrong. I tried to tell her, but she was so worried about you she wasn't thinking clearly. I stood, brushed dirt from my knees. Worried about me? Of course. You're 75, you're alone now, this big house. He spread his hands. We just want to make sure you're okay. I'm fine. Are you? He stepped closer, his voice dropping to something intimate, conspiratorial. Helena, can I be honest with you? Victoria doesn't know I'm here. She'd kill me if she knew. But I need to talk to someone about this. And you've always been kind to me. Interesting. This was a different approach. Divide and conquer. What do you want to talk about, Derek? Victoria's not herself lately. He ran a hand through his hair. She's under so much stress. The dealership failing, the money problems. It's been hard on our marriage. She's become obsessed with finances. Paranoid. She thinks everyone's against us. Are you in financial trouble? His laugh was bitter. That's an understatement. We're drowning, Helena. Absolutely drowning. The dealership bankruptcy wiped out everything I'd built. We refinanced the house to try to save it, but that just delayed the inevitable. Now we're behind on the mortgage, maxed out on credit cards, and Victoria... He stopped. She's not handling it well. What does that mean? She's been making plans. Big plans. Without talking to me about them. He looked at me directly. Did she really tell you that you had 3 days to move out? Yes. He closed his eyes. Jesus, I didn't know she'd said it like that. Helena, I'm so sorry. That's not... We would never actually force you out of your home. Then why did she bring a realtor here on Friday? She what? His shock looked genuine. She said she was going to talk to you again. Try to explain things more calmly. She brought a realtor? Either Derek was an excellent actor, or Victoria was operating independently, running her own operation. Derek, I said carefully, where did you get the money for your down payment when you bought the Roseville house? He blinked at the change of subject. What? We saved it. Wedding gifts, savings. Richard and I gave you $50,000 for your honeymoon. You told us you were going to Italy. His face flushed. We changed our minds. Decided to put it toward the house instead. You went to Cabo San Lucas for 4 days. I saw the photos Victoria posted. Silence. So where did the other $45,000 go, Derek? His mouth opened, closed. That's between Victoria and me. Is it? Because I think it went toward other debts you had. Credit cards, maybe. Or loans from when your first business venture failed in 2017. The sports bar that went bankrupt? His face went white. How do you know about that? I pulled off my gardening gloves slowly, deliberately. I know a lot of things, Derek. I know about the foreclosure notice. I know you owe $17,000 to bring your mortgage current. I know your credit card debt is over $80,000. I know that if someone doesn't help you, you'll lose your house by March. Helena, his voice cracked. Please, if there's any way you could help us, just a loan, just enough to what? Save a house you can't afford? Pay off debts you'll just accumulate again? We'll pay you back, like you paid back the $50,000 we gave you for a honeymoon you never took? He had no answer for that. Derek, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen carefully. I stepped closer. I am not your solution. My house is not your lottery ticket. And if Victoria tries one more time to manipulate me, coerce me, or force me out of my home, I will take legal action. What kind of legal action? The kind that involves lawyers, court orders, and public records of financial elder abuse. Is that clear? He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. You're not the person I thought you were. No, I said quietly. I'm not. And that's going to be a problem for you and Victoria. He left without the coffee or croissants. I watched his car disappear down the street, then pulled out my phone and called Dorothy. Derek just tried to play good cop, claimed Victoria's acting on her own. Do you believe him? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Robert Steinberg's office was downtown, occupying the 14th floor of a glass tower with views of the Sacramento River. I'd hired him on Dorothy's recommendation. 58 years old, senior partner, specialized in estate law and elder protection. His office was lined with law books and framed degrees. Harvard Law, Supreme Court admissions. This man was serious. Mrs. Thorne. He stood when his assistant showed me in, shook my hand firmly. Thank you for coming. I've reviewed all the documents you sent over. He gestured to a folder on his desk. Inside were copies of everything I'd found in Richard's study, plus the deed to my house, and the mortgage purchase documents for Victoria's property. Let's start with your house, he said. Victoria is listed as a joint tenant with right of survivorship. Do you know what that means? It means if I die, she gets full ownership automatically. Correct. However, and this is crucial, while you're alive, she has no right to sell, mortgage, or dispose of the property without your explicit written consent. She cannot force you to sell. She cannot evict you. This is your primary residence, and California law protects homeowners in your position very strongly. Relief washed through me. So I'm safe? From forced sale, yes. However, there's a complication. He pulled out another document. If Victoria chose to file a partition action, essentially forcing a sale through the courts, she could argue that as a co-owner, she's entitled to her share of the equity. A judge might order the house sold and the proceeds divided. My stomach dropped. Can she do that? She can try. But given that this is your primary residence, that you're 75, that you have no other place to live, and that there's evidence of financial coercion, he tapped the bank statements. Most judges would rule in your favor, especially if we can prove she added herself to the deed under false pretenses. What would I need to prove that? Did she claim it was only for emergency purposes, health crisis management? Yes. She said if I became incapacitated, she could help manage things. Do you have that in writing? No, but Dorothy Mitchell was there when we discussed it. She can testify. He made a note. Good. Now let's talk about the mortgage you purchased. He opened another folder. Thorne Family Holdings LLC now owns Victoria and Derek Hayes' mortgage debt of $420,000. The loan is currently 90 days past due. You, as the note holder, have the right to proceed with foreclosure. How long would that take? In California, 4 to 6 months from filing. You'd send them a notice of default, give them 90 days to cure the debt, and if they can't, you can schedule a trustee sale. What if I wanted to use this as leverage instead? His eyes gleamed. What did you have in mind? I want Victoria to sign a quitclaim deed removing herself from my property. In exchange, I'll forgive a portion of her mortgage debt and restructure the rest at favorable terms. How much forgiveness? $150,000. Enough to bring them current and give them breathing room. And if she refuses, then I proceed with foreclosure. Robert Steinberg leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. Mrs. Thorne, I have to say, in 30 years of practicing law, I've rarely seen someone turn the tables this elegantly. Victoria tried to take your house, so you bought hers. Is it legal? Completely. Poetic, but completely legal. He pulled out a yellow legal pad. Here's what I recommend. We send her a letter, formal, legal, impossible to ignore. We outline her 2 options clearly. We give her 72 hours to decide, and we make it very clear that if she chooses option 2, foreclosure proceedings begin immediately. When can you send it? I can have it drafted by tomorrow, delivered by Thursday. Do it. As I stood to leave, Robert said, Mrs. Thorne, may I ask you something personal? Of course. Are you prepared for what comes next? Victoria is your daughter. This will likely destroy your relationship permanently. I thought about Victoria's cold eyes at the funeral, about Derek photographing Richard's belongings, about the 3-day ultimatum while my husband was barely in the ground. Mr. Steinberg, I said quietly, my relationship with my daughter ended the moment she told me I had 3 days to leave my home. What comes next is just making it official. Dorothy's friend was named Carol Martinez, 62, retired FBI, now ran a private investigation firm specializing in financial crimes. She came to my house Wednesday afternoon with a leather portfolio and a grim expression. We sat in my living room, me, Dorothy, Rita, and Joan. Carol spread documents across my coffee table. I've been investigating Victoria Hayes, born Victoria Thorne, for the past 5 days. What I found is concerning. She opened the portfolio. Let's start with her employment history. In the last 8 years, Victoria has had 6 jobs. 6 jobs in 8 years. That seemed like a lot. What kind of jobs? I asked. Marketing positions mostly. Middle management? Nothing that would explain the lifestyle she's been living. The house, the cars, the vacations. Carol pulled out a timeline. Here's what's interesting. At each job, she left under questionable circumstances. She pointed to the first entry, Madison Advertising, 2016 to 2017. Victoria was terminated after an internal audit revealed discrepancies in the expense account. $42,000 in charges that couldn't be accounted for. The company didn't press charges. They wanted to avoid publicity, but she was fired. My hands went cold. Premier Marketing Group, 2017 to 2018. Same story. $68,000 in questionable expenses. Again, they let her resign quietly. How is this possible? Joan asked. Wouldn't this show up on background checks? Only if charges were filed. These companies chose to handle it internally. No police reports, no court records. Just quiet terminations. Carol flipped to the next page. Skyline Media, 2019. This time it was $55,000. Are you seeing the pattern? I was seeing it, and I felt sick. Each time, Carol continued, Victoria would claim the expenses were legitimate. Client dinners, business travel, marketing materials. She'd provide receipts, but when auditors dug deeper, the receipts were often fabricated or the expenses were personal, not business-related. Where is she working now? Rita asked. Vertex Solutions. Started in January of this year. I called them yesterday, pretending to be a reference check for a potential employer. They confirmed she's still employed, but when I asked about her performance, there was a very long pause. I think they're building a case. Dorothy leaned forward. So Victoria has been systematically defrauding her employers for 8 years? It appears that way. And there's something else. Carol pulled out another document. Victoria's maiden name is Thorne, but between 2015 and 2016, she briefly used the name Victoria Morrison. Morrison? I frowned. That was her college boyfriend's name. Kyle Morrison. They were engaged for about 6 months. Then it fell apart. She never talked about it. There's a reason for that. Carol slid a document across the table. Kyle Morrison filed a restraining order against Victoria in December 2015. He claimed she'd stolen $28,000 from his bank account, forged his signature on loan applications, and made threats when he tried to break up with her. The room went silent. She was 28 years old, Carol said quietly, and she was already doing this. I stared at the restraining order, at my daughter's signature, at Kyle Morrison's statement. Victoria Thorne is financially predatory and emotionally manipulative. She targeted me because I had a trust fund. When I discovered her theft, she threatened to destroy my reputation if I reported her. Did he report her? I asked. He tried, but Victoria's lawyer, paid for by someone, I'm guessing your late husband, got the charges reduced. She paid restitution, the case was sealed, and the restraining order expired after 2 years. Richard had paid for her lawyer. Richard had known. Even then, 17 years ago, he'd known what Victoria was, and he'd protected her, because that's what parents do. There's one more thing. Carol's voice was gentle now. I pulled Derek Hayes' background as well. He's had 3 failed businesses in the last 10 years. Each one started with investor money or loans. Each one went bankrupt within 2 years. The pattern suggests mismanagement at best, fraud at worst. So Victoria married someone just like her, Jones said. Or she chose someone she could control, Carol replied. Someone whose financial desperation matched her own. I stood up, walked to the window. Outside, children were playing in the street. Normal families. Normal lives. How had I raised someone capable of this? Helena, Dorothy's voice was soft. This isn't your fault. Isn't it? I gave her everything. I worked 2 jobs to send her to college. Richard adopted her, loved her, paid for her graduate degree. And despite all that love and support, she chose this path, Rita said firmly. You can't blame yourself for her choices. Carol began gathering her documents. I'll have a full written report to you by Friday. Mrs. Thorne, I have to ask, what are you planning to do with this information? I turned to face them, my army, my allies. I'm going to protect myself, I said, and I'm going to make sure Victoria faces consequences for the first time in her life. The letter arrived at Victoria's house at 10 a.m., delivered by professional courier. I know because Dorothy's nephew James was watching. It was 11 pages. Formal legal letterhead. Addressed to Victoria Hayes and Derek Hayes. The contents were simple. Notice of mortgage ownership transfer. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, this letter is to inform you that your mortgage loan, account 847-3920-4473, original amount $420,000, current balance $420,000, has been sold by First Bank Home Loans to Thorne Family Holdings, LLC, effective November 15, 2024. Your loan is currently 93 days past due. Amount needed to cure default, $17,842. Thorne Family Holdings, LLC offers you 2 options. Option 1, voluntary settlement. Victoria Hayes will execute a quitclaim deed removing herself as co-owner from the property located at 847 Maple Ridge Drive, Sacramento, CA 95814, Helena Thorne's primary residence. Upon receipt of properly executed and notarized documents, Thorne Family Holdings, LLC will forgive $150,000 of the outstanding mortgage balance, restructure remaining $270,000 at 5% fixed interest over 30 years. New monthly payment, $1,368, affordable and sustainable. Option 2, foreclosure. If option 1 is declined, foreclosure proceedings will commence Monday, November 25, 2024. Estimated timeline to trustee sale, 180 days. You will lose your home and all equity therein. You have 72 hours from receipt of this letter to respond. Deadline, Sunday, November 24th, 2024, 5 o'clock p.m. Respectfully, Robert Steinberg, a securial attorney for Thorne Family Holdings, LLC. At the bottom, in smaller text, Thorne Family Holdings, LLC is a registered California entity. Principal, Helena Marie Thorne. Dorothy called me at 11:07 a.m. James just texted. Victoria's car just peeled out of the driveway. She's heading your way. Good, I said. Let her come. I called Rita and Joan. They arrived within 20 minutes. We sat in my living room, waiting. Victoria's car screeched to a stop outside at 11:34 a.m. She burst through my front door. I'd left it unlocked deliberately, her face purple with rage, the letter crumpled in her hand. "You bought our mortgage?" she screamed. "What kind of sick, twisted—" "Hello, Victoria," I said calmly. "These are my witnesses, Rita Walsh, Joan Harper, and Dorothy Mitchell. Whatever you say right now, they're hearing it." That stopped her, for about 3 seconds. "How dare you? We're your family. You're supposed to help us, not, she waved the letter like a weapon. "This is blackmail." "No, dear, this is a business transaction. You tried to take my house. I bought your debt. Now you have a choice to make." Derek appeared in the doorway behind her, looking shattered. "Helena, please. There has to be another way." "There was another way," I said. "You could have come to me honestly. You could have said, 'We're in trouble, can you help?' Instead, you tried to force me out of my home 3 days after my husband's funeral." "We were desperate!" Victoria shouted. "So was I said quietly. "Desperate to understand how my daughter could be so cruel." Silence fell. Victoria's face twisted through several emotions: rage, denial, calculation, and finally, something like fear. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You think you can just, this is my inheritance you're taking." "Your inheritance?" I stood up. "You have no inheritance, Victoria. You have a mother you've lied to, stolen from, and manipulated. This is the consequence." She stared at me, and I saw the moment she realized I knew about the jobs, the embezzlement, the restraining order, all of it. "You investigated me," she whispered. "I protected myself. There's a difference." Derek pulled her arm. "Come on, we need to talk to a lawyer." "Yes," Robert Steinberg said, appearing in my doorway. I'd called him too. "You should absolutely talk to a lawyer. Any competent attorney will tell you option 1 is your only realistic choice." "Mrs. Thorne is being remarkably generous considering the circumstances." Victoria looked between me, the witnesses, and the lawyer. She was trapped, and she knew it. "You have 72 hours, I said. "Choose wisely." They left. Rita let out a breath. "That was intense." "That was necessary," I corrected. Dorothy squeezed my hand. "You did the right thing, Helena." I hoped she was right, because the war had just begun. The silence was worse than the screaming. After Victoria and Derek left on Thursday, my phone didn't ring. No furious calls, no desperate texts, just eerie, absolute silence. I spent Friday morning in my garden, pulling weeds that didn't need pulling, trimming roses that were already perfect. My hands needed something to do. My mind needed the meditative rhythm of physical work. Dorothy called at 9. "James just reported something concerning. Victoria went to First Bank yesterday afternoon. She was there for 2 hours. What was she doing?" "Trying to challenge the mortgage sale, claiming fraud, coercion, that you're mentally incompetent. The bank shut her down immediately. The sale was completely legal and she has no standing to contest it. But Helena, she's not giving up. I didn't think she would. There's something else. Derek's mother posted bond for them." I frowned. "Bond? For what?" "I'm getting to that. After Victoria failed at the bank, she went to your house. My blood went cold." "When?" "When? Last night around 11. George Williams saw her. She was trying to get in through the back door. George Williams, my neighbor, the retired police sergeant. Thank God for George." "Did she break in?" "No. George called out to her from his porch. She claimed she'd left something inside and needed to retrieve it. George told her if she didn't leave immediately, he'd call the police. She left. But Helena, this is escalating. She's desperate. Desperate people are dangerous people. Exactly. Which is why I'm coming over. Don't argue. Rita and Joan are coming too. We're staying until this is resolved. They arrived at noon, Dorothy, Rita, and Joan, with overnight bags and casseroles. We're having a sleepover, Rita announced, like we're 20 years old again, except with arthritis and better wine. Despite everything, I laughed. We were sitting in my kitchen drinking coffee and pretending this was a normal Friday afternoon when a Mercedes pulled into my driveway. Not Victoria's car. A silver S-Class, immaculate and expensive. A woman emerged, late 60s, expensively dressed in a Chanel suit, carrying a designer handbag that probably cost more than my monthly pension. Her hair was perfectly silver, styled in a sharp bob. Her makeup was flawless. "Who is that?" Joan asked. Dorothy peered through the window. "That's Patricia Hayes, Derek's mother." The doorbell rang. I let it ring twice before answering. "Mrs. Thorne." Patricia's smile was polished, professional. "I apologize for the unannounced visit. I'm Patricia Hayes, Derek's mother. We met briefly at your wedding to Richard." I remembered her vaguely. She'd been cordial but distant, the kind of wealthy woman who measured everyone by their net worth. "What can I do for you, Mrs. Hayes?" I was hoping we could speak privately, mother to mother. I considered, then stepped aside. "Come in." We sat in my living room. Dorothy, Rita, and Joan remained in the kitchen, but the archway was open. They could hear everything. Patricia arranged herself on my sofa with practiced grace. "I'll be direct, Mrs. Thorne. I know about the mortgage. I know about the ultimatum. And I'm here to broker a compromise." "I'm listening." "My son made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. The failed businesses, the debt. That's on him. But Victoria..." She paused delicately. "Victoria has certain tendencies. She always has. I tried to warn Derek before they married, but he didn't listen." "What kind of tendencies?" Patricia's polished exterior cracked slightly. "The kind that led to her losing 6 jobs. The kind that led to a restraining order from a previous boyfriend. The kind that..." She stopped. "I've known for years what my daughter-in-law is. But Derek loves her. Or he's afraid of her. I'm not sure which anymore." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I don't want my grandchildren traumatized by a foreclosure. Connor is 9. Lily is 5. They're innocent in all this." She leaned forward. "I'm prepared to offer you a settlement. Victoria signs the quit-claim deed. You forgive $150,000 of the mortgage debt. And I will personally guarantee the remaining payments for the next 5 years. If they default, I'll cover it." "That's very generous. It's pragmatic. If they lose the house, Derek will be destroyed. Victoria will leave him. She only stays when there's money. My grandchildren will be caught in the middle." Her voice hardened. "I won't let that happen." I studied her. Patricia Hayes was the kind of woman who was used to solving problems with money, who believed that enough zeros on a check could fix anything. "Mrs. Hayes, I appreciate your offer, but I need Victoria to sign that quit-claim deed because she understands consequences, not because you bribed her into it." "It's not a bribe, it's exactly a bribe. You're offering to insulate her from the results of her actions." Again, I stood. "How many times have you done this? How many of Victoria's messes have you cleaned up? The jobs she lost? The debts she accumulated? Did you pay people off then, too?" Patricia's face flushed. "I was protecting my son. You were enabling your daughter-in-law, and now you want me to do the same thing. That's not..." "Mrs. Hayes, Victoria needs to face real consequences for the first time in her life. Not consequences softened by family money. Not consequences negotiated away by lawyers. Real, actual, permanent consequences. If I accept your offer, I'm just another person who taught her that she can manipulate and steal and face no real penalty as long as she finds the right person to bail her out." Patricia stood, her composure fully shattered now. "You're condemning my grandchildren to instability because you want revenge on their mother." "No, I'm teaching their mother that actions have consequences. If she learns that lesson, Your grandchildren will be better off in the long run. You self-righteous, she caught herself, smoothed her suit. Fine, have it your way, Mrs. Thorne, but when Victoria loses everything and takes my son and grandchildren down with her, that's on you. No, Mrs. Hayes, that's on Victoria. It's always been on Victoria. She left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Dorothy appeared in the archway. That was magnificent. That was exhausting, I corrected. How much time left? She checked her watch. 24 hours. The deadline is tomorrow at 5 p.m. I woke at 6 a.m. to find Rita already in my kitchen, making coffee. Couldn't sleep, she said, pouring me a cup. Big day. The deadline was 11 hours away. My phone buzzed at 7:15. Unknown number. I answered. Hello? Mom? Victoria's voice was strange, flat, emotionless. We need to talk. I'm listening. Can we meet? Just you and me. No lawyers, no witnesses. Please. Every instinct screamed trap, but there was something in her voice. Defeat, maybe, or genuine desperation. Where? Riverside Park, the bench by the rose garden, 9 o'clock. I'll be there. I hung up. Dorothy was already shaking her head. Absolutely not. You're not meeting her alone. I won't be alone. You'll be watching from a distance. All of you. I looked at Rita and Joan. But I need to hear what she has to say. If there's any chance for her to do the right thing, I have to give her that chance. The park was quiet on a Saturday morning. Frost still clung to the grass. The rose garden was dormant, waiting for spring. Victoria was already there, sitting on the bench. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked younger, smaller, almost like the daughter I used to know. I sat beside her, leaving space between us. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I found the report, she said finally. The private investigator's report. Derek left it on the kitchen table. I didn't mean for you to see that. Didn't you? She turned to look at me. You wanted me to know that you knew. About Kyle. About the jobs. About everything. I wanted to understand who my daughter had become. And? Who am I, Mom? According to Carol Martinez's very thorough investigation. Who am I? I chose my words carefully. You're someone who's been making destructive choices for a very long time. Someone who sees people as resources instead of relationships. Someone who's never faced real consequences. So you never learned to stop. She laughed, bitter and broken. That's a kind way of saying I'm a thief and a liar. Yes, it is. You could have just said it. Would that have changed anything? She was quiet. Then, Richard knew, didn't he? About Kyle, about the first job I lost. He knew, and he still loved me, still protected me. He did. But you don't. I turned to face her fully. Victoria, I love you. You're my daughter. I will always love you, but I won't protect you from consequences anymore. Richard did, and it didn't help you. It made you worse. So this is for my own good? Her voice rose. Threatening to take my house, destroying my marriage, humiliating me? That's love? No, that's a boundary. I won't let you hurt me to save yourself. If that destroys our relationship, I'm sorry, but I won't be your victim. She stood up, pacing. Do you know what Derek said last night? He said he's done. Whether I sign your papers or not, he's filing for divorce. His mother offered to pay for it. Offered to help him get custody of Connor and Lily because I'm unstable. She laughed again, that awful broken sound. Everyone's leaving me. My job is reviewing my performance. That means they're building a case to fire me. My friends stopped calling when they heard about the foreclosure. And now you're taking the house, taking your name off my life, taking everything. I'm taking back what's mine. There's a difference. She stopped pacing, looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Did you ever think that maybe I'm like this because you made me this way? The accusation hit like a slap. Explain that. You worked all the time when I was a kid. 2 jobs, remember? You were never home. I raised myself. And then you married Richard and suddenly you had time for him, for his career, for his friends, but never enough time for me. That's not fair, isn't it? You were so busy being the perfect wife, the perfect hostess for his business dinners. Where was my mother when I needed her? I stood now, anger rising. I worked 2 jobs to keep you fed, clothed, educated. I worked myself to exhaustion to give you opportunities I never had. And you resent me for it? I resent that you act like you were some kind of martyr when really you just weren't there. I was always there, Victoria. Every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every birthday, every holiday, every moment I could possibly manage. Was I perfect? No. Did I make mistakes? Absolutely. But I loved you. I sacrificed everything for you. And this, I gestured between us, this is not my fault. These are your choices. She stared at me, then quietly, I know. What? I know it's my fault. Tears were streaming down her face now. I know I'm the problem. I know I've ruined everything. I know I'm going to lose my house, my husband, my kids, everything. And I know it's because of me. Not you, not Derek, not bad luck. Me. This was the moment. The breakthrough I'd been hoping for. Victoria, if you truly understand that, then sign the papers. Let me help you start over with a clean foundation. And then what? I rebuild my life? Become a better person? Live happily ever after? She shook her head. I don't know how to be different, Mom. This is who I am. No, this is who you've chosen to be. You can choose differently. Can I? She looked at me with something like genuine curiosity. Have you ever tried to change something fundamental about yourself? Really tried? It's like trying to write with your non-dominant hand. You can do it, but it's awkward and slow and it never feels natural. Being a good person should feel natural, Victoria. Maybe for you, not for me. She wiped her eyes. I came here to tell you that Derek and I will sign your papers. We don't have a choice. But I want you to know that this doesn't fix anything between us. You're taking your name off my life, and I'm taking mine off yours. After this, we're done. Victoria, I mean it, Mom. You won't see Connor or Lily again. I'll tell them Grandma Helena died, or moved away, or whatever story makes sense. You wanted consequences? There's yours. She walked away before I could respond. I sat on the bench, shaking, as Dorothy emerged from behind a tree 30 yards away. You got all that? I asked. She held up her phone. Every word. Audio and video. Good. If she tries to claim I'm unfit to see my grandchildren, we have proof that she's deliberately alienating them as punishment. Helena, are you okay? Was I? I'd just watched my daughter admit she was broken and refused to try to fix herself. I'd won the battle and lost. What? The war? The relationship? Everything that mattered? I don't know, I said honestly. But it's too late to stop now. Robert Steinberg's office at 5 p.m. on a Saturday should have been closed, but he'd opened it specially for this. Victoria and Derek arrived at 4:55, 5 minutes early. They looked like people attending their own funeral. Derek's eyes were red. Victoria's face was a mask. Robert had prepared everything. The quitclaim deed removing Victoria from my property, the modified mortgage documents showing the new balance of $270,000 at 4.5% interest, the debt forgiveness agreement for $150,000. A notary public sat ready. Dorothy, Rita, and Joan were there as witnesses. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, Robert said formally. Before we proceed, I need to confirm you understand what you're signing. We understand, Derek said quietly. Robert turned to Victoria. Mrs. Hayes? I understand. Her voice was flat, dead. Very well. Let's begin. The signing took 12 minutes. Victoria's hand shook as she signed the quitclaim deed. A tear fell on the paper, smudging her signature slightly. Derek signed the mortgage documents with steady hands. He looked at me once, mouthed thank you, but I couldn't tell if he meant it. The notary verified their identities, witnessed the signatures, affixed her seal. "It's done," Robert said. "Mrs. Thorne, you are now the sole owner of 847 Maple Ridge Drive. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, your mortgage has been restructured. Your first payment under the new terms is due December 1st. Victoria stood abruptly. "Are we finished?" "Yes." She grabbed her purse and walked out without looking at me. Derek hesitated. "Helena, I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserved better." "So did you, Derek. I hope you find it." He nodded and followed his wife. After they'd gone, Rita let out a long breath. "Is it wrong that I feel sad for them?" "No," I said. "It's human." "You did the right thing," Joan said firmly. "Did I?" I looked at the signed documents. "I won. I kept my house. I protected myself. But I lost my daughter. Was that the right thing?" Robert Steinberg began gathering the papers. "Mrs. Thorne, in my experience, people who are willing to hurt you to get what they want will hurt you again and again until you stop them. You didn't lose your daughter today. You acknowledged that you'd already lost her, probably years ago. You just made it official." Maybe he was right. Maybe not. All I knew was that I was tired. Bone deep, soul tired. "Can I go home now?" I asked. "You can go home," Robert confirmed. "To your home, that no one can take from you." Spring came to Sacramento with a vengeance. My roses bloomed more beautifully than they had in years. The garden was a riot of color, red, pink, yellow, white. I'd joined a gardening club, started volunteering at the library on Tuesdays, reading to children, taken a watercolor painting class at the community center. My life was full, peaceful, mine. Dorothy and I had coffee every Tuesday morning. Rita, Joan, and I played cards every Thursday night. I'd reconnected with old friends, made new ones, built a life that didn't revolve around worry and fear. The house was mine. The deed, updated and recorded, bore only my name. Helena Marie Thorne, sole owner. I'd remodeled the guest bedroom into an art studio, painted the kitchen a cheerful yellow, replaced the worn carpet with hardwood floors. This house was becoming exactly what I wanted it to be. In March, I'd received a call from Patricia Hayes. "Mrs. Thorne, this is Patricia. I wanted to let you know Derek filed for divorce. It's final next month." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Don't be. It's for the best. He's getting primary custody of Connor and Lily. Victoria has supervised visitation every other weekend." "How are the children?" "Adjusting. Derek told them the truth, age-appropriate truth, that Mommy made some mistakes, that Grandma Helena had to protect herself, but that none of it was their fault. I'd like to see them sometime, if Derek thinks that's appropriate." There was a pause. "I'll ask him. He's not angry at you, Helena. He understands what you did and why. Give him some time." I'd given him time, and then on a Saturday in May, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Derek standing there with Connor and Lily. "Hi, Helena," Derek said. "The kids have been asking about you. I thought maybe we could visit, if that's okay?" Connor, now 9 years old, grinned up at me. "Grandma Helena, Dad said you have a garden. Can we see it?" Lily, 5 and shy, peeked out from behind her father. "Do you still paint watercolors?" I looked at Derek. He nodded. "Come in," I said. "Please come in." We spent the afternoon in my garden. I showed Connor the roses, taught him how to deadhead the spent blooms. Lily and I painted together in my studio, her small hands carefully mixing colors. Derek and I sat on the patio drinking iced tea. "How is she?" I asked quietly. "Victoria's working at a non-profit now, helping seniors avoid financial scams. The irony isn't lost on me." He smiled sadly. "She's in therapy. Real therapy, not court-ordered stuff. She's trying. I don't know if she'll succeed, but she's trying. That's something. She asks about you sometimes. Wonders if you hate her." I thought about that. "No, I don't hate her. I just can't have her in my life. Not the way she was. Maybe someday if she really changes, but not now." "I understand." He watched Connor chase a butterfly through the garden. "I want to thank you, Helena, for what you did. I know it doesn't seem like it, but you saved us. The mortgage restructuring, the debt forgiveness, we would have lost everything without that. We're making the payments now. Barely, but we're making them, and I have my kids. That's what matters. I'm glad, Derek. Truly. As they were leaving, Connor hugged me tight. Can we come back, Grandma Helena? Anytime you want, sweetheart. After they'd gone, I stood in my garden, watching the sunset paint my roses gold and pink. I'd lost my daughter, at least for now, but I'd gained something more important. I'd gained myself back. I was 75 years old. My husband was gone. My daughter was estranged. But I was standing in my own home, surrounded by beauty I'd created, living a life I'd chosen. I'd learned that at 75, you're never too old to fight for what matters. That love doesn't mean accepting abuse. That boundaries aren't cruelty. They're survival. The greatest victory wasn't revenge. It was peace. And I was finally, completely at peace. The roses bloomed. The sun set. And I was home.